Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, and can we just take a minute to talk about how Awesome Sauce Episode 9 of the anime series Planet With was? Because it was all kinds of kick-ass, and I thoroughly enjoyed the ever-loving hell out of it. And I'm doing this video somewhat knowingly because in the last couple of weeks, the last few anime-related videos I put up were, sort of negative connotation reactions to things that got up my ire and were really displeasing or frustrating to me in the summer 2018 anime season, which I'm not covering anything episodically in anyway, so I have been motivated to come on and talk about certain of my frustrations along those lines with Hanebado, Island, Hadaraku Sayabo, and things like that. And I really could have done one on Shoujo Kageki Review Starlight recently in the last couple of episodes for that series, because once again I've been frustrated with the WTF furry going on in that series, and I could have really unleashed holy hell on it. And the most recent episode of which I found to be just thoroughly lackluster for me. I'm hearing it described by everyone else as the greatest thing since sliced bread, but with the time loop episode, which I think was episode 7, I think episode 8 was the most recent episode that just aired in the last day or two, and I watched it and it just fell flat for me after the whole time loop debacle, I didn't find it resounding. I didn't find it rejuvenating or exciting or any of these things that everyone else seems to be clamoring on about, that they experienced watching it. Whereas I tuned into Planet With episode 9 earlier today, and it was everything that Review Starlight episode wasn't for me, as far as excitement, goosebumps, being compelled. I mean, it had a little bit of everything, this episode, where it was action-packed. It had that underwriting, undercurrent of emotion and impactful characterization. And these are things that the anime Planet With have had from the very beginning, but I didn't actually sign on to it right away. It was something that was recommended to me like 2 or 3 episodes into the series by a friend and viewer, and I went back and started watching it. I had originally glossed over it because it was simply described as like a mecha series, and I'm somebody who really has a sort of love-hate, much more leaning toward disdain for certain mecha, series, that whole genre. When it comes to things like Susei no Gargantia or Iron-Blooded Orphans, the Gundam series, these were sort of special occasions where the depth and the characterization, the intrigue, and things like that really drew me in. But I don't find that to be the case more often than not with mecha-themed series, at least to my own personal tastes. But Planet With was a pleasant surprise. It had me cracking up from the word go with the purple cat sensei dude, who's in the first episode. You see him scoping out the panties of some of main character Soya's anime figures, or maybe they're the sensei's figures, I don't know exactly. But there are some really comedic scenes where you see him sort of angling, looking at something off camera, and they pull the camera out, and then you realize, oh, he's getting a look up skirts of anime figures. And so the absurdity of that, a giant purple cat, a cat alien, whatever you want to call him, he is the sensei, he's scoping out anime panties and whatever like that on anime figures. It had me from the word go, because it cracked me up. And then you get into things like the whole backstory of the main character Soya, who is a displaced alien who now resides on Earth, much akin to my all-time favorite, one of my all-time favorite fictional heroes and superheroes, Superman, Kal-El of Krypton, the last son of Krypton, whereas Soya is the last son of Sirius, and his home planet, he has sort of vague memories of its destruction. It was, destroyed by these powers. The whole series is consumed with these powers that awaken in different beings across the cosmos. And there are these factions, some who want to exploit it, some who want to seal it away and close it off from being able to ever endanger any other, galaxial societies and things of that sort. And Soya has these memories of his planet coming under the destruction of some of this power that was all consuming and took the form of a dragon. And his elder brother, slightly elder brother, was one of the people who had tapped into the power on the planet Sirius and went off to fight this thing, but they were all bested for all intents and purposes. And so Soya is rescued by the cat sensei and his sort of maid donning attire, sidekick. And they're the main triumvirate of the series Planet With. But now that they reside on Earth, they are trying to stave off this impeding faction who's coming again and again and again, trying to like exploit the power and run amok, rule the earth and all this stuff. And then you have like a pacifistic faction. There's the sealing faction, which are the ones responsible for trying to seal the earth, lock it away, sort of, stop time so that this power cannot run away with itself at the hands of humanity, because there's every danger of that happening. Absolute power corrupts absolutely, and that's exactly what they're afraid of. But, like the twists and turns in this series where you think sort of at the beginning Soya is the villain, and there's a whole faction of heroes who are on Earth that he has to contend with and go up against, but then you find out their leader is actually a villain. He wants to take over the earth and enslave it to his righteousness. He believes his righteous outlook is the thing humanity needs to be ruled and under his thumb, so that things will be, law abiding and pure and all this kind of, just crazy stuff. And of course Soya has to contend with that, and then as that finally is something that is done away with, well, then all of these Galaxial factions start making themselves known, and he's approached by a ghostly visage of his brother that's not actually his brother, but a member of the pacifistic faction, and they're trying to get the leg up and motivate him to go after the faction that wants to seal the earth and quiet it and stop time and not allow that power to corrupt humanity and potentially endanger the other, planets and everything like that. So all of this is precursor to this episode, this 9th episode, wherein the sealing faction finally finds a benefactor, one of the former heroes. In the previous episode, they had the character by the name of Benica. She was going to be the one to seal the earth, but then she ends up getting her ass kicked by a couple of the other former heroes. There's a whole duplicitous aspect to it. Some of them, they didn't realize they still had powers because they were taken out by Soya earlier on, and when they find out their leader was actually a villain, they sort of lose all cohesion. They're like, why were we fighting to begin with? We were lied to from the beginning. We were exploited, so we're just going to walk away. But they're called back to action, and there's a split between them where a couple of them, you have Benica and Yosuke, who are two of the surviving former heroes. They end up siding with the sealing faction because they feel like if they could be so manipulated by their former leader, who turned out not to be a hero, but a villain, that is every proof. That's all the proof they need for the endangerment of what humanity poses to the galaxy, to the universe at large. And so they want to seal it up and everything like that. And Benica gets knocked out, as I say. So it's left to Yosuke, the character, green hair and glasses, kind of geeky, has a thing for Benica. She had a thing for his brother. Apparently he lost his brother, which is something that really coincides and relates with the Soya character, the main character. He also lost his brother. So from that point of view, you have these two characters who are kind of on different ends of the spectrum that are going to have to collide in this episode, because Yosuke brings about successfully the entire sealing of the planet Earth in a sort of time lock. Everything goes gray in the animation of the episode, and it's frickin' spectacular. It's like The Day the Earth Stood Still, the sci-fi classic, only realized, legitimized in this episode. Soya is the only one who remains unsealed, and he's the only one who retains any color. And there's some speaking in the dialogue about how the earth has fallen silent. There is silence now. There is no sound, no emanation of life anymore. And it's actually the pacifistic faction, this ghostly apparition of Soya's brother, who has kept him from being sealed and is now relying on him to snap the earth back into its wakefulness. And the way this is done, the way this is directed and paced and animated, where the whole world has gone black and white, with the exception of Soya, and how his ghostly apparition-like brother, he taps into Soya's mind and makes him gigantic, like the size of King Kong, but it's sort of an apparition or an extension of his own mind's eye, which then there's like a little bullhorn that, that appears floating in front of him, and he starts speaking to the world as it's sealed, as it's locked away. And he's able to, like, the whole aspect is, you know, in humanity's minds, while they're sealed, they're having dreams that are brilliant, you know, heavenly dreams of all of their hopes and dreams and desires being answered. So they'd never they wouldn't be wanting to wake up out of it, unless they faced the cruel reality of the fact that this is all fake. It's all a ruse. You know, it's kind of like the Matrix, where they're in, you know, all consumed by the matrixy virtual reality, you know, dream reality, if you will. And the cruel reality that Soya lands home is that it's all fake. It's not real. It's not living and breathing and surviving and doing all these things in the real world anymore. And so his voice resonates, and it manages to snap to people one by one. You know, he asks for all of humanity, whoever can hear him, whoever so chooses to wake back up into reality, raise your hand. And there's this great shot of just a bunch of hands going up one after the other, and he's shocked and he's moved by this. He becomes emotional, because a lot of it falls back on his schoolmate, this girl Nozomi, who wants to be his friend, and you know, she's kind of like the class representative or something like that. And when she saw that he was constantly off by himself and not really relating to anyone, she reached out to him. And there's some dialogue, you know, backing up and influencing him in this episode to say that I care about the people I'm befriended to. I care about the people I want to befriend. And they matter to me. If I'm going to consider someone a friend, that person matters to me. And I'm going to fight for them. And this inspires him. And this is what, you know, when he is recollecting back on the things he's lost, his brother, his world, and how welcoming the people of, you know, Earth have been to him, the few friends that he's actually made, how welcoming and helpful the sensei, and, you know, I can never think of her damn name, but the maid girl that is part of the main triumvirate. They literally saved his life and brought him to Earth in doing so. And so it's all, you know, this stuff that matters so much to him that he shares with humanity from his mind's eye, and it wakes them all up. It snaps them all to again. The entire Earth reawakens from its black and white nature to the vibrance of the colors of the ocean and the greens of the jungles and all this kind of stuff. And it's just, it was directed spectacularly. It was animated spectacularly. It was acted spectacularly. Even the sort of, you know, incidental music all throughout, you know, the episode, there was this melancholy to it, and it was just pitch perfect with the mood, you know, the emotions of what was supposed to be transpiring. And so after all of this really heartening, awesome stuff, of course, then you have the action kick in with Soya and Sensei merging, and they merge with Sensei's ship, which is a giant version of him for some reason, a giant purple cat with the little purple cat guy that the Sensei is, and they merge the mecha, you know, that Soya pilots, which I guess is kind of sort of Sensei, like he climbs into Sensei and it becomes a mecha, and then they climb into his ship and that becomes an even bigger mecha and everything. You know, it's somewhat complex, but to watch it, it's not as complex as trying to describe it. But they end up kicking Yosuke's ever-loving ass after bringing the Earth back from having been sealed. And it's just, holy shnikes, man. I was goosebumps laden. I was at the edge of my seat. I was like practically cheering watching the episode. You know, I was like, hell yes. Because it actually had an impact. It actually had some great emotional connectivity and interpersonal interconnectivity between its characters, and great characterization. And I really just wanted to come on and sort of fanboy about that. Because, as I say, my last couple of videos talking about different anime episodes were much more negative reactions, things that I just didn't enjoy and was disappointed with or shocked by and seemed really on faulty ground with the twists and the turns and such like that, or poor characterization. And as I say, even though I did not talk about Review Starlight in a video, I did talk about it on my anime list. I did talk about it on my Facebook account. But I wanted to come on and talk about something in contrast, in a more positive light. And Planet with episode 9, and really every episode of this series, has been one of the best series of the summer 2018 season, as far as I'm concerned. And so I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below, whether you love it, hate it, or if you're watching Planet with, if you're going to think about maybe tuning into it, checking it out, per this discussion of it. I highly, highly recommend that you do, because it's one of the underdogs of this season, I think, in how good it is and how little it seems to be being talked about, at least, you know, within my sphere. And if you'd like to maybe consider supporting my channel on YouTube, you can do so by clicking the link in the description, as well as the comments, a PayPal donate link, where you have options very much akin to Patreon, where you can make a monthly, you know, contribution set up, or you can do it a one-time only kind of thing. And it will go far and wide to helping me, you know, keep my stuff going on YouTube and such like that. Anything considered being thrown my way, you know, or 2 thumbs up from me, and very much appreciated. And you can also submit a request, basically, for anything you might want me to talk about in the future, where I would only ask that you let me know if you want some notoriety if I happen to discuss your topic that you propose by making a contribution. So I would very much appreciate you considering taking time out of your day to do that, have a look at that and that kind of thing. If you enjoyed this video, if you enjoy my content, and otherwise, that'll be pretty much it for me on this. Hope this video finds you well, and I'll catch you all later.